Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Al-I'tikaf. So we, in this session, in this short session, we look at the meaning of i'tikaf, um, the the legality of i'tikaf, as per the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the do's and the don'ts in i'tikaf, and in particular, I think the real focus this year is on the i'tikaf for the women, and not, not quite for the men, because the i'tikaf, one of the conditions of i'tikaf for men is that the i'tikaf must take place in the masjid. And so that possibility, that possibility, or that's now impossible for the men. And so the men cannot practice the sunnah of i'tikaf in the masjid, and so therefore this year's i'tikaf is the spiritual retreat is all on the women, inshallah. And so it's the responsibility of lifting the burden, because remember, i'tikaf, and we're going to speak about this inshallah, i'tikaf is uh, it's a communal sunnah upon people. And so if one person was to practice this sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then the burden of this is lifted from the entire community. So if one person was to fulfill the i'tikaf and the practice of i'tikaf, then the sin is lifted from the rest of the community. And so firstly, what is i'tikaf, the spiritual retreat? Sorry, yes. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going. I'tikaf is to remain in a masjid, in a jami' masjid, in a state of fasting with the intention of i'tikaf. And so the definition of i'tikaf is to remain in the masjid, in a place, but legally, and in Islam, it's to remain in a masjid in a state of fasting with the intention of i'tikaf. Again, the intention is very important here. And so what is a jami' masjid? Because i'tikaf is to remain in a jami' masjid. A jami' masjid is a place where there is an imam and a mu'adhin, a caller of the prayer. And some have stipulated the condition that all prayers must be performed um, in that masjid, for that masjid to be called a jami' masjid. Okay, so all 5 prayers must take place in the masjid for the masjid to be a jami' masjid. And some scholars have not stipulated that condition from the Ahnaf, but preferred is that at least the Jummah must take place. Yeah. So a jami' masjid is a masjid in which Jummah takes place. And so i'tikaf is to remain in a masjid where Jummah takes place in a state of fasting with the intention of i'tikaf. That's for men. And for women also, but for women it's disliked, and we will come to that inshallah. For women to sit in a masjid for i'tikaf, it's makruh tahriman, it's severely disliked. Okay, now as for the legality of this spiritual retreat, this i'tikaf, what makes it legal? Where is it found? Well, Sayyid Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrates, and this hadith is found in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. She says that the Prophet ﷺ used to practice i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan till he left this world, and then his wives used to practice i'tikaf after him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the legality of i'tikaf is found from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just like it's mentioned in this hadith. And Imam Zuhri radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that strange are people, how can they leave i'tikaf? And he says that the Prophet ﷺ used to do things and he used to leave things, but he never left i'tikaf. And he never left i'tikaf. And a hadith found in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, again, in which the narrators state that the Prophet ﷺ practiced i'tikaf every year except 1 year, and that year he sat i'tikaf in the month of Shawwal. after the month of Ramadan. And so the Prophet ﷺ, this practice of i'tikaf, this was emphasized by the Prophet ﷺ. And because in Imam Zuhri says, and because in i'tikaf the heart can be freed from the worldly affairs and submits itself to its creator. This is the real purpose of disconnecting from the world and secluding ourselves and spending time in dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because then the heart can be freed from the worldly affairs and it can truly submit itself to its body, its creator, and safeguarding it in a fortress. This is what itikaf is. Itikaf allows you to then protect and safeguard your hearts. And Atta said, rahimahullah ta'ala, that the example of a person practicing itikaf is like a man who has a need from the Great One. And so he sits at his doorstep and he says, I will not leave until my need is fulfilled. And so this is what i'tikaf is, that people go and sit at the doorstep of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, metaphorically speaking, and you don't, you know, leave and get up from that majestic door until the need is fulfilled. And so it's asking and asking and asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until that need is fulfilled. And this is what i'tikaf in essence is. What's important in i'tikaf? What's the pillar of i'tikaf? Something that must be established. Well, what must be in place for i'tikaf is that you remain in the masjid or the place of i'tikaf. For women, the place of i'tikaf. You must remain there. If a person leaves the place, even momentarily, their i'tikaf is invalid. Yeah, it's nullified. And so they must remain in their place at all times. Now there are cases, you know, where they will be excused, and we will talk about those. But if it's leaving for a purpose which is not absolute, a purpose which isn't a need, then the i'tikaf is nullified. So there are three types of i'tikaf. The first is mandatory wajib i'tikaf. This is when one makes a vow to perform it. So, for example, someone says, you know, if I pass my exams, then I will sit i'tikaf for 10 days. Okay, this is now a wajib i'tikaf. This is a person making it obligatory upon themselves. And so this i'tikaf, this type of seclusion and retreat can be fulfilled and performed in any month outside the month of Ramadan. Yeah. So even in the if it's unspecified, yeah. If someone just says that if I pass my exams, I will sit i'tikaf, or if this happens, then I will sit i'tikaf. If that happens, then I will sit i'tikaf. They can sit i'tikaf in any month. They can sit i'tikaf in Muharram, you know, Rabiul Awwal, Safar, whatever month, unless they have specified it and said, if this happens, I will sit i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Shawwal or in the last 5 days of Shawwal. Number is not, there's no you know, there's no limit on the number either, and so they can make a vow, unlimited number of days of i'tikaf, and they can specify it, and it can remain unspecified. But what's important is to remember that it becomes wajib. The emphasized communal, that's the last 10 days of Ramadan. This is what we're looking forward to. This is kifaya, sunnah kifaya, this type of i'tikaf, meaning that if one person was to fulfill this type, if one person was to fulfill this sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in a community, then the burden is lifted from the entire community. And so the entire community is saved from sin. And if no one in the community fulfills this sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then the entire community is blameworthy and possibly sinful. The third type is the recommended mustahab i'tikaf, and that's any other retreat. So in the scholars have said the mustahab i'tikaf is even if you were to walk into the masjid and you say nawaitu sunnat al-i'tikaf, momentarily outside Ramadan. It could be at any time. If you enter the masjid and you make the intention of i'tikaf, that's your mustahab i'tikaf. You're in a state of i'tikaf. Yeah, and so a person is rewarded for i'tikaf. Yeah, even if it is to walk from one door of the masjid to the other door, so from one entrance to the other exit point. That's if you make the intention of i'tikaf in between, you're rewarded for i'tikaf. And so every time we enter the masjid, every time we um uh, you know uh, uh, every even if it's momentarily we go to the masjid, make the intention of i'tikaf, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us for the intention of i'tikaf. Okay, and so this is an explanation of what sunnah kifaya is. Okay, what are the conditions of i'tikaf? Islam, obviously. Muslim, being a Muslim, a sane, sanity is a condition. Pure from major ritual impurity, menstruation and postnatal bleeding for women. They must be pure from that. And they must know that they are not going to become impure again in the next 10 days. Yeah. So they must have a rough idea, and before they go into this retreat. Intention is important. So before you sit itikaf, you must have a clear intention of what you're about to do. Again, intention doesn't have to be verbal. It could just be in your heart. In your heart that you're about to sit itikaf. Masjid, that's a condition for men. Okay, that the i'tikaf must take place in the masjid. Now for women, like I mentioned before, it's makruh, and it's a severe dislike for women to sit i'tikaf in the masjid. And so for them, it's the masjidu baytiha. For them, they must sit i'tikaf in the masjid or the musalla of their own houses, which we will come to inshallah. And fasting is a condition for the wajib i'tikaf. Yeah. So anyone that's made a vow to sit i'tikaf, then they must accompany that i'tikaf with a fast. Okay, women's i'tikaf. Yeah, like I mentioned that this year it's all about the women i'tikaf, the women's i'tikaf, because men generally, men will be prohibited from sitting i'tikaf in the masjid because of our circumstances. So women performs the spiritual retreat in that area of her house which she in general has designated for her prayers. And so for women, the area that they normally use for prayers, for musalla, for her musalla, that's the area that she will sit i'tikaf in. Okay. Now, if she doesn't have a designated area, then she cannot sit i'tikaf until she makes and intends a part of her house to be a designated area of prayer. And so she must intend that area to be a designated area of prayer, and then she can sit i'tikaf. Yeah, so it's very, very important for her to designate a part of the house as a area of prayer before she can sit i'tikaf. Okay, and she cannot practice, and she cannot use any other area to sit i'tikaf in after that. Okay, like mentioned, women's i'tikaf in a masjid is disliked. If she doesn't have a designated area of prayer, it is not valid in any part of the house. So she must first designate a place of worship, which will become known as Masjidul Bayt, and then may practice retreat. Masjidul Bayt just means the mosque of the house. Yeah. So a part of her house becomes like a masjid for her. Yeah. And so she can then fulfill this sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When performing the retreat in her area, she may not leave it until the retreat is over, until the i'tikaf is over. Very important for her that the area that she has now designated, she must remain in that area, in that part, in that corner, and she cannot leave until the i'tikaf is over. Now it is necessary, so some more rulings. It is necessary for a married woman to seek the permission of her husband before retreating. starting her i'tikaf. So she must seek the permission of her husband, and husbands should not deprive their wives of gaining reward by refusing, by saying no, and not allowing them and not permitting them to say i'tikaf. Yeah. So for a woman to seek permission, and husbands and must give their wives permission.
Would she sleep? Would she sleep in the area that she?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And what if it's the time of month?
We will inshallah just cover that now. My screen is frozen. I don't know if you guys can see it.
No, it's not changing now.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, it's coming now.
All right. So if he has given her permission, if the husband gives her permission, then prevents or prohibits her, he cannot do that. Okay. Once he's given her permission, then he cannot prevent or prohibit her. And if he does succeed in preventing and prohibiting her, then she doesn't have to make that i'tikaf up later. So on the 5th day, he prevents her or prohibits her from continuing to sit in i'tikaf, and forces her to come out of i'tikaf. Then she doesn't have to make up the remainder of the days of i'tikaf like anyone else would if they left i'tikaf for any other reasons. Okay. So a woman, if she is prevented by her husband and forced to get up from the i'tikaf during the i'tikaf, then she will not have to make that i'tikaf up later on. Qada is not wajib upon her in that case. If a woman has commenced i'tikaf, she started i'tikaf, and thereafter menstruation commences, it starts during the duration of i'tikaf, then she has to abandon the i'tikaf. She must immediately get up as soon as the period starts, and so in such a situation, it is wajib upon her to make qada of the i'tikaf of the days which she abandoned. Yeah. And so if
the day or the days?
The days, yeah, including that day. Yeah. So if it was on the 24th, then she must sit i'tikaf for 7 days or 6 days, depending on when the moon was sighted of that month. Okay. So including the day that she left and abandoned the i'tikaf. And so this qada now can be made this qada now can be made in any month outside the month of Ramadan. What's important is that she keeps a fast on that day also, okay, and then performs i'tikaf with that. Yeah. So it's very important for women, if they have to abandon their i'tikaf, then qada is now wajib upon them. So it's not sunnah like it was initially. The i'tikaf was sunnah upon them. They weren't burdened with it. They wouldn't have been sinful. But now that they began the i'tikaf and had to leave, they have to fulfill that responsibility now and must come back to it. And the way they come back to it is that they must fast on that day and then perform the i'tikaf. Okay. And also, when you I don't think I mentioned this, I've written it down here, but it's important that she must do it, make up that qada in all in one go, rather than separating the days. So she can't separate the days. She can't sit i'tikaf for one day, and then if she has 5 days to make up, she can't sit i'tikaf for one day and then a week later sit another day, and so on and so forth. She must fulfill that all in one go, just as she was sitting i'tikaf as per sunnah in Ramadan. Okay. Now the fast, her fasting, it could be with the intention of the qada fast as well. Yeah. So obviously, after the day started, she couldn't fast either, and so therefore now she has to make up the fast as well, the qada fast of Ramadan. And so her fasting qada fast, her when she sits at i'tikaf, she can start fasting with the intention of making up for the fast also. Okay. So her fast could be with the intention of qada fast, which she missed in Ramadan. Now, responsibility. There was a question a few days ago about women who have some sort of responsibility or care, or responsible for the care or well-being of someone else. And so, can she sit i'tikaf? Now, this is for both, generally for both men and women, just not women, that they cannot spiritually seclude themselves for such a lengthy period of time if they are responsible for the care or well-being of someone. So if they are having to take care of an elderly person that they cannot find a substitute for, and if that's the case, then they cannot sit the sunnah i'tikaf. Okay, it's wajib for them to take care um, of someone elderly that they are responsible for, and it's sunnah for them to say i'tikaf. And wujub in Sharia, the wajib takes precedence. Yeah, and so they must continue to take care of the person, of the individual that they're responsible for, and have an intention that if this wasn't the case, then they would be sitting i'tikaf, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them for their intention. If that is the case, that some days they have to take care of the person and some days they don't, then they can practice the mustahab i'tikaf, and so they can go into retreat for 5 days rather than 10 days. That's valid. Okay, so they can sit for a shorter period of time. So maybe 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. Yeah, so this is the mustahab i'tikaf. This is possible. This is again for both men and women, that they can both sit i'tikaf for a shorter period of time. The do's within i'tikaf, it's obviously permissible to eat, drink, sleep, but again, the eating, drinking, and sleeping can only take place in the designated area for women, and for men inside the masjid. And so they, for sisters, they cannot leave their place and go to the kitchen and get something to eat, and so they must remain in their designated areas. And even buying and selling is possible, so trading, as long as the commodity is not brought into the masjid itself, and as that's makruh tahrimi. So as long as the commodity is not brought into the masjid, they can buy and sell in i'tikaf, and this is jaiz. This is what the fuqaha have written in the books. A person cannot leave their place of retreat except for a shar'i reason. Yeah. Now, it's not a valid reason. We're not saying a valid reason, because there may be many valid reasons that you may have to leave i'tikaf, but that will mean that the i'tikaf is invalidated, and so you must make qada. Yeah. So for shar'i reasons, you can leave and come back, and you don't have to. You just continue. So what's shar'i reason? What's the reason according to Sharia? The reasons according to Sharia for which you can leave i'tikaf and then return back and don't have to make qada is to pray Jummah prayer if the prayer doesn't take place in the masjid that you are sitting i'tikaf in. So in that case, you can leave and come back. For natural need, to relieve yourselves. For relieving yourselves, one can, move away from the, obviously, from the designated area, and go and go for a natural need and return back. In any of these cases, a person must immediately enter back into the retreat, into the i'tikaf. A person, again, so examples that are specifically mentioned in the books of Sharia, in the books of Fiqh, are like, janaza. So if someone was to go to a janaza, that's the i'tikaf invalidated now. Okay, or for taking care of someone, that's the i'tikaf now invalidated. Yeah, these might be valid reasons, but they're not shar'i reasons. Okay, so they are valid reasons for you getting up for your i'tikaf, but these are not shar'i reasons, and so therefore i'tikaf will be invalidated, and so qada will need to be made. Okay, what can you not do in i'tikaf? You can't leave without an excuse. The excuses that we have mentioned, other than those, you can't leave. If you do, then the i'tikaf will be invalidated. Engaging in any intimacy invalidates the i'tikaf. And you don't have to be completely silent. And this is actually, it's disliked. It's makruh tanzihi to remain absolutely silent. This is more for the brothers in masjid than sisters, because the women are sitting at itikaf alone, and so majority of their time they will be silent. But for the brothers in the masjid, itikaf isn't a samt. It's not just, it's not being silent, but if the speech is bad, then silence is better. Yeah, so if you're just talking rubbish and about, I don't know, politics and football and Premier League and so on and so forth while sitting in itikaf, it's probably best to just remain completely silent then. And so it's better to speak if the speech is good than silence. What can be done in itikaf? Qada prayers should take priority. Yeah, so this is an opportunity where people will have a lot of time, and so they can make up their prayers. Recite the Quran with reflection and aim to complete at least one Quran in the 10 days of i'tikaf. Beneficial knowledge, which means books, du'as, and so on and so forth. Dhikr, voluntary prayers, listening, and it's fine. It's fine to, you can have your phone with you if you know that you are able to disconnect yourselves from the world and use that for your benefit. Yeah. And so if you're in i'tikaf and still using social media and going about your as you normally do, then this isn't the i'tikaf in reality. Yeah, so hakikatan, this is not i'tikaf. This is not connecting yourselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is the time, the i'tikaf is a time where you leave everything behind, and you connect your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if other things are coming in the way, then again, we gotta think about that.
Are you allowed to join live streaming of classes? Um,
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, you can join live streams of classes. You can listen to online speeches in i'tikaf. No problems. Yeah. If you have to, you can even ask a question. Yeah. So if you have to, put in the question section, you can ask a question during i'tikaf. طيب. When is the start time and the end time of i'tikaf? It starts on the 20th Ramadan at Maghrib time. So after the 20th fast. So when you're entering into the 21st night, you must be in your places of i'tikaf before the Maghrib time. Yeah. So the iftar, yeah, the iftar of 20th Ramadan will be in i'tikaf. Yeah. So the 21st night is the first day of sunnah, the first night, I should say, of sunnah i'tikaf. And you must be in places or in the masjid before the Maghrib time. And so before iftar, people should retreat to their places of i'tikaf. When does it end? When does the i'tikaf time end? Witnessing of crescent of Shawwal, or if you don't witness it on the 29th, then completion of the 30 days of Ramadan. Yeah, so completing the 30 days of Ramadan, and that's Maghrib. Again, you can't get up before Maghrib. Yeah, so you must stand or come out of i'tikaf after the sunset, and the Maghrib of the first of Shawwal. Okay, and that's there's nothing else that I can remember or add on here. So if there are any questions, sir, then that's wrapping up i'tikaf.
That's it for now, inshallah. I've not had any more questions come through.
No problem. No problem, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, we'll continue with Salah. And so we spoke about Tahara last week. We spoke about Tahara of the badan, the body, and we touched upon purification of the clothes and how much impurities one is allowed to pray in or excused, and how much impurity one is not allowed in, and prayer will be invalid. We've spoken about that. Now we're moving on to the prayer itself. So firstly, we have to understand the arkaan of the prayer, the integral parts of the prayer, the fara'id. Okay, and the fara'id of prayer are 6 according to some scholars and 7 according to others. Okay, and the one that they differ in is the very first fard of prayer, which is a takbir tahrima. So some say, according to Imam Muhammad, the takbir tahrima, the opening takbir, it's an integral part of the prayer. And according to Abu Yusuf and Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahumullah ta'ala, it's actually the condition of the prayer, because this is still outside the prayer. The takbir tahrima, they say it's still outside the prayer. When you've done your takbir tahrima, now you've entered into the prayer. And so they don't place takbir tahrima within the prayer, but rather they say this is the condition of the prayer. And so Imam Muhammad says that takbir tahrima is actually the integral part of the prayer. And so this is the fard, the first fard of prayer. Without this, now without these fara'id, the salah is incomplete, it's null, it's invalid. So the very first thing that every single one must do is takbir tahrima. When we spoke about the takbir tahrima, the lifting of the hands for men, making sure that the palms are facing the qibla, there are 2 opinions now. Either that the thumbs must touch the earlobes, or there must at least be equivalent to the earlobes for men, and for the sisters, for the women, it's just up to the shoulders. Your hands raised up to the shoulders, but this is sufficient. Okay, so this is takbir tahrima. Standing is the second fard of salah. Standing if one is physically able to. And what's defined as standing, because a lot of people will be standing, but they're actually kind of kneeling or moving forward. Okay, so what's standing? Standing is defined as if you were to extend your arms towards your knees, you wouldn't be able to touch them. If you're standing up and your standing is such that your hands, if you were to extend them, touch your knees, that's not standing, that's not qiyam. Okay, and so you're missing a fard of prayer. And so we have to make sure that we are standing upright in prayer. The third fard, without which, so now the fuqaha say that if one is able to, if one is physically able to, if someone has a back problem and they can't stand, then the next best thing is to sit and pray. Now, when I mean sit and pray, I don't mean on a chair. Yeah. So if a person can't stand because of their back problems, but it's okay, they can't do sajda, okay, then they can prostrate, then they shouldn't be sitting on the chair. Okay, they shouldn't be sitting on the chair, but rather they should be sitting on the ground and praying. That's their next best thing. And if now they can't prostrate either because they have to bend their backs, and so therefore they can't stand and they can't prostrate, then they can sit on a chair. Yeah. But first, if they cannot stand, they must sit on the ground and pray their salah. Because again, sajda, prostrating, is a fard. And if you're sitting on a chair, you're missing 2 fards now. You're missing qiyam, which you weren't able to do, okay, which is fair, you sat down. But now the fact that you're sitting on a chair, you're missing out another fard of prayer, which is the sajda, yeah, which we will come to. So a lot of people, when they're not able to stand, physically they're not able to stand, the next best thing is that they sit on a chair. This shouldn't be the practice. The practice should be that we sit on the ground. Okay, if you can't stand and pray, sit on the ground and pray, and pray your salah. The next integral part of the prayer is the recitation of the Quran. Reciting the Quran, even if only one verse. Okay, even if only so So reciting Fatiha is wajib. Okay, it's not a fard, it's wajib according to the Hanafis. And recitation of the Quran, where you say just 2 words of the Quran, that is enough. Yeah, for the technically for the validity of the Salah. So even if only 1 verse in any 2 rakahs of the obligatory prayer and all rakahs of the Sunnah and Nafil prayers. So recitation in all rakahs of the Sunnah and Nafil prayers is a fard, and in the fard prayers, it's only the first 2 rakahs. Okay, so the first 2 rakahs you will recite, and the other 2 rakahs, it's not a fard to recite in those. Okay, what is recitation? The definition of recitation: recitation is utterance such that a person can hear themselves. That's very important. Yeah, if they're in a around people and it's quite loud and quite noisy, then they don't have to, obviously they don't have to read and recite loudly in their prayer, but recite and utter in such that you would be able to hear yourselves if you were in a quiet environment. Okay, now a lot of people recite whilst in prayer, but they're either reciting in their minds, in their head. Okay, so they're reciting the entire Surah Fatiha, but they are not moving their lips, they are not moving their tongue, they are not moving their mouth. This does not qualify as qira'ah. This does not qualify as qira'ah. Qira'ah, recitation, is that you must be able to hear yourselves. And so when we're reciting in prayer and recitation, remember, it's a fard. When we're reciting in prayer, it's important, it's necessary, and it's obligatory to recite in such a way that you're able to hear yourselves in a quiet environment. Okay. The next rukn, integral part of the salah, is ruku. And ruku is performed by bending the back and the head. The minimum is that the person is closer to the knees than the standing position, and the perfect ruku is that the back is flat with the head for men, aligning of the limbs for men. Okay, and for women, they don't have to. Their backs shouldn't be straight and shouldn't be in line with their head, but rather they should just bend their back slightly such that their hands can reach their knees and they can touch their knees. They can place their hands over their knees, their palms over their knees. Okay. And so for men, when they go into ruku, they must make sure that their backs are straight, number one. Okay, so their backs are quite flat. And secondly, they must make sure that their hands, their palms are gripping their knees rather than just placing them on their knees. Yeah, so we place it, no, we want to grip our knees. Okay. The second thing that we must remember whilst performing ruku, again, for men, is that the area between the shoulder and the arm, the elbows, the area between the shoulder and the elbow, this should not be tied into our stomachs. Yeah, so it shouldn't be, we shouldn't be doing ruku where we are tying it and squeezing it into ourselves, but rather there should be space there. Whereas for women, it's the total opposite. Again, the idea of haya, the modesty, and so therefore they must tie that within themselves, squeeze it and place it, tuck it into their stomach, and then go into ruku in that manner. Sajda is another integral part of the salah. Sajda is to place the forehead, a part of the forehead, the nose, both hands, both knees, and the toes of both feet on the ground. Okay. And so for men, the toes must be facing the Qibla. Okay. At least the 2 big toes of the feet and the 2 toes next to the big toe, they must be facing the Qibla. Okay. Now, when doing sajda, it's very important both for men and women that the place that they're doing sajda on must bear the weight of the head. And so you're not, you're not placing your head as in on a soft platform firstly. So you don't place your head on a soft platform. The platform must be hard. So it can't be cotton, or the books of fiqh mention ice, thalj, yeah, or snow. So it can't be on ice or snow or cotton where your head sinks in. So for us now, it can't be on thick carpets where your head kind of sinks in, or on bean bags or something like that where your head would sink in, but rather doing sajda on a flat and hard platform. Yeah, where the place that you're putting your head on, that must bear the weight of the head. So that's a fard of the prayer. So sajda is, because sajda is fard of the prayer, perfecting the sajda is also now important. So we need to know how to do sajda properly. The final sitting for at least the length of the recital of reciting the shahud. So the final sitting is a fard. And leaving the prayer with an action which is not part of the prayer is a fard. Okay, now these are all faraid. Now, if a person was to miss out everything else and just perform these, then their salah is technically valid but incomplete. Naqisatan. Their salah is incomplete. Why? Because they have left the necessary actions of the prayer, the wajibat. Okay, and if you leave a wajib out, the wajib of prayer, if you were to leave that out, then the sajda to sahw becomes necessary upon a person. He has to do an extra sajda at the end, which is called the prostration of forgetfulness. Okay, so just by doing these actions of the prayer, your prayer is not complete. Okay, it's valid but not complete. And so therefore, to complete the prayer and to perfect the prayer, wajib and sunan and mustahabbat must also be done within the prayer. But when you come to, if you ask what are the most important things within the prayer, what are the things that we must be really, really concerned with and must make sure that we are performing these actions within the prayer, then these are the 7 actions. Yeah, in their perfect manner. So recitation of the Quran, qiyam, standing, ruku, sujood, the final sitting, the leaving of the prayer, and for some the takbir tahrima at the start. These are things that must be done within the prayer. Okay, for women, when performing the opening takbir, she raises her hands to the level of her shoulders, which we've already spoken about, while men raise their hands to the level of their ears. When performing opening takbir, it's very important for man to take out his hands from any shawl that he has wrapped around his shoulders. Yeah. So a lot of men, they might have a shawl wrapped around their shoulders, and they might do takbir tahrima whilst their hands are under their shawl. For men, this is not allowed. This is impermissible, and so they must remove their hands from underneath the shawl. But for women, if they have a shawl wrap around them, then they cannot remove their hands from underneath that shawl. And so for women, she should not and does not withdraw her hands from underneath her sleeves, because it may expose her forearms, which are part of the aura, whilst men must remove their hands from underneath their shawls. When standing, how will the woman, when she's standing, when she stands, she must, so when she's standing in qiyam, she places her right inner palm on top of her left hand and rests her hands on her chest without clasping them. Yeah, like men would hold, yeah, they would grip their wrists And this is how they would tie their hands above their navel in prayer. And women wouldn't clasp, wouldn't grip their wrists at all. They would just place their hands on their place the right hand on top of the left. When bowing, she doesn't spread her fingers apart like men would spread their fingers apart and grip their knees. Women will not spread their fingers apart, but will keep them close together. This is now important for men. Okay, when men are bowing, they must not bend their knees. Yeah, for men, they must not bend their knees. So they must bend their back, but not their knees. Okay, unlike women, when women bow, they will bend their knees so that they can reach their knees. Yeah, so their hands can reach their knees. When bowing and prostrating, she keeps her upper arms, like we mentioned before, she keeps her upper arms quite close. Yeah, unlike men who will keep it away. Even in sajda, again, the women will be as close as possible, and men will be as far apart as possible. And the sajda of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's narrations which mention that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would prostrate, there would be so much space between his head and his stomach that if a small lamb was to pass underneath him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it could easily pass. Yeah, and so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sajda, it was quite wide, and so that's the sunnah for men, that their sajdas must be wide. For women, their sajdas must be close, and they must be as close as possible. When sitting in tashahhud, for women, she sits in the tawarruk position. And tawarruk position is where she sits on her left side with her knees bent and both legs are conveniently positioned to the right side of her body, just like it's mentioned in the Maraki al-Falah and in other fiqh texts. For women, if they are praying, and this is obviously now that we're praying at home and Jama'at takes place, and Taraweeh is taking place, and there's women behind men. Now, if the Imam forgets something in his prayer, the women, the woman won't speak, she won't correct him, but rather she claps without excessive movement instead of saying Subhanallah like men. Yeah. So where Imam forgets to stand up when he should have stood up, the men will say Subhanallah out loud to remind him, that he's made a mistake in prayer. Whereas a woman, she will not say Subhanallah, she will not speak, but rather she will maybe clap, without excessive movement. She will clap without excessive movement to remind him that he has made some sort of mistake in prayer. Okay, so those were the integral part of the prayer. Yeah, the fara'id, what we call the fara'id, things that must take place. Without these actions, the prayer is invalid. Then there are wajibat of the prayer, the necessary actions of the prayer, the mandatory actions of the prayer. Again, wajibat must take place. If you miss a wajib of the prayer, then you have to make up that by doing sayda sahwa at the end. Yeah. Now, what are the wajibat of the prayer? Number one, the first wajib of prayer is to say Allahu Akbar at the point of takbir tahrima, to say Allahu Akbar specifically. Yeah. So rather than saying Allahu al-Azim, Allahu Rahman, Allahu al-Kareem, to say Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest, to use that sifa, that attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that now is wajib. Okay. So the words Allahu Akbar at the point of takbir tahrima is wajib. To recite Fatiha is wajib in prayer according to the Hanafis. and with that Fatiha to recite one long verse or three short verses from the Quran in the first two rakahs of Fard prayer and in all units of Nafil prayer is wajib. Which means, and a lot of this is a wide misconception. A lot of people don't know this, but in the when you're praying your Fard prayers, you only recite Fatiha and Surah in the first two rakahs. If it's a 4 rakah Fard prayer, say for Dhuhr, yeah, you will recite Fatiha, and with that you will attach a surah in only the first two rakahs. In the latter two rakahs of a fard prayer, you will only recite Fatiha and not surah. You will not attach a surah, or you will not attach three short verses or one long verse with that Fatiha. So Fatiha will be recited in the first two rakahs with a surah of the fard prayer, and Fatiha only, in the latter two rakahs of a fard prayer, only Surah Fatiha will be read and recited, and you will not attach a surah with that. As for the nawafil, as for the sunnah prayers, the nafil, and the witr, you will recite Fatiha and a surah in every single rakah. In every single unit of the prayer, you will recite Surah Fatiha and attach either three short verses, one long verse, or a surah from the Quran. That's wajib. When performing prostration, when performing the sajda, the wajib is that the head, the forehead, and the nose, the soft part of the nose, must be touching the ground. Not the soft part, which is the inside, but rather the hard part. Sorry, just the outside part of the nose. Yeah, the upper part of the nose must touch the ground. It must be firm upon the ground. Must be firm on the ground. Next, wajib is to sit, to be still for at least a moment in every integral action of the prayer. So, for example, we've spoken about the integral parts, actions of the prayer, like qiyam and the ruku. So, ruku, going into ruku is fard of the prayer. Now, to be still for a moment in that action is wajib. Yeah, so you can't just go into ruku and come back out even before someone says subhanallah. Meaning the moment, a moment, being still for at least a moment is equal to one subhanallah. So you must be in ruku for at least one subhanallah. You must be in sajda for at least one subhanallah. If anyone is performing their ruku quicker than even one subhanallah, and sajda even one subhanallah, then that ruku and that sajda is not complete, and they're missing a wajib. So being still is very important. The first sitting is wajib, which means that if a person was to miss the first sitting, which is often the case, so we're praying the Dhuhr prayer, and after the second rakah, a person forgets to sit down and stands back up. Okay, now they've missed a wajib. They haven't missed a fard. They've missed a wajib. Now they cannot return back. Okay, they just continue the prayer. Okay, and for someone who misses a wajib, all they have to do is, but to make up that missed wajib, they just have to do sayda sahw at the end, a prostration of forgetfulness. So when a wajib is missed, you don't go back to repeat that, but rather you will compensate by performing an extra sajda at the end. And the hikmah behind that is, who has made you forget this? Is the shaitan, the waswasas of the shaitan and the nafs and so on and so forth. And what does shaitan hate the most? That a person, an individual, is in sajda and saying Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. And so when a shaitan has made you forget, now you punish the shaitan by doing an extra sajda at the end. The scholars write, this is the hikmah. This is the wisdom behind performing a sajda for something that you missed within the prayer. Yeah. The next wajib is to read the shahud in both sittings. That's wajib. Again, if you miss that out, then you will have to do sayda sahw. And the next wajib is to say the word as-salam when you finish the prayer. Yeah. So to leave the prayer with any action is fard. Yeah. So say someone starts eating at the end of the prayer, they've left. Yeah. As long as they completed the rest of the prayer, their prayer is valid. Okay. But to leave with the word assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, that's now wajib. Okay. Um, and so inshallah, we will continue from here talking about the wajibat, and then we will come to the Sayyidah Sahu. So if there's mistakes within the prayer, you know, what kind of mistakes necessitate the Sayyidah Sahu and which mistakes are let-offs you can get away without the Sayyidah Sahu, inshallah.
Inshallah, if you've got any questions for Molana regarding what we covered today with the itqaf or the fard and the wajib or the prayers, or anything else related to the prayer, inshallah, you can post the questions on the YouTube channel now. Just to kind of add further, we are doing daily recitals of Quran at the moment. So 10:30 in the morning, sorry, 11 a.m. in the morning and 6:30 p.m. Inshallah, we will do Khatam al-Quran on the 27th of Ramadan with Sheikh Salman Van Al. We also have a very, very special gathering tomorrow evening at 6:45. We will be doing a gathering in remembrance of the companions from the Battle of Badr, the 313. Mashallah, it'll be a very, very special evening, and we have got some special guests, inshallah, Sheikh Tanwir, Sheikh Sulman Van Al, and Imam Jalani, our Imam and our teacher, inshallah, will also be honoring us. And we also have Muaz Al Nas, the Munshid, and the Wickham Munshid also, who will be reciting at this gathering as well, inshallah. So after this class finishes, we'll be sharing the poster, so do please share and like and let others know. Molana, a few questions for you.
Yeah.
Should we do a sajda at the end of the namaz just in case we forgot to do something in salah?
No, absolutely no. Yeah, that will invalidate your prayer.
Okay, so you can't do sajda so based on doubt.
No, absolutely. You must be sure that you made a mistake and know what mistake you have made and know whether that constitutes as Sayyidah Sahu or not, and then do Sayyidah Sahu.
Okay. So if you don't know because of your knowledge whether that error constitutes sajda sah or not, then you don't do the sajda. Is
You
that
don't
correct?
do Sayyidah Sahu, no.
Okay. And if you find out afterwards, do you repeat the prayer?
If the time is there, the time of the prayer is still valid, you're still in the time, then repeat the prayer. If it's not, then that's fine.
Okay. What's the ruling on of a man's head being covered during salah?
In the Hanafi madhab, it's makruh tahrimi for the head being uncovered in the salah. So a man must have a kufi or a topi on or a imam sharif on whilst praying. The Hanafis are very strict in this, very, very strict. The only time they allow for the head to be uncovered within the prayer is if a person is doing it out of humility. Yeah, and in absolute, he's in awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so he's scared and so on and so forth, so he has his head uncovered to show that humility and humbleness and standing before Allah. Then in that case he can, otherwise his head must always be covered in the Hanafi madhab.
Okay. What is the etiquette to leave the prayer before completion because of the breaking of wudu or some other reason?
Salam, yeah. So to say salam. So even if someone's in a qiyam and he has to leave the prayer, then just say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, because assalam is not part of the prayer. And so when you say assalam, you have uttered something which is not part of the qira'ah, and so therefore you leave the prayer.
Okay. So by qiyam, you mean if you're standing?
Yeah, if you're standing, if you're sitting, whichever position you are, just say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and you'll be out of the salah.
Inshallah. Another question is janaza related questions, because obviously people are having to pray janazas recently.
Yeah.
When you say salam in the janaza prayer, some people, when they do salam to the right, they release one hand, and when they say salam to the left, they release the other hand. What is the position in the Hanafi school?
Um, so so the Hanafi school, I don't know the one hand leaving first and the other hand leaving second. I'm not sure where that's mentioned. But what I've read in the fiqh books, and this is recently, is that when you're giving salam, then you just drop both hands at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
When doing qada prayer, do you have to read a surah after Fatiha?
In the in the first, so if you're doing qada of um, a dhuhr prayer, in the first two rak'ahs you will have to read surah after the Fatiha, because surah after the Fatiha is a wajib. And so if you're leaving that, you will have to actually do sayda sahwa at the end, because you're leaving a wajib.
In prayer, if one forgets in, say, for example, the four rakats of fard, and in the third rakat, after the Fatiha, I start reading a surah, do I have to do sajda for that?
Say that again, I didn't quite catch
So in I think the question is in the fourth rakat, in say in the four rakats of Dhuhr,
that. Zohar, yeah.
in the third rakat after Fatiha, there's no surah,
Yep.
correct? So
Good question.
if one reads a surah,
Good question. Okay. If one was to read a surah in that case, when there's no surah, then there's no sayda sahw. You see, even though it's wajib for you to not to read the surah, and just to read Fatiha and go down, but in this case, you don't have to do sayda sahw. So if you forget and you add a surah or add, three short verses, you don't do sayda sahw.
okay, and in the same scenario in the Sunnah prayer, the four Sunnahs, you forget you read Fatiha, but then you don't read the surah,
Then it's wajib.
then it's what?
Then it's what you must do. Then if you miss that, then you must do sayda sahw.
Inshallah. If the viewers have got any more questions, inshallah, please do post. Jazakallah, because these questions are really, really good, really important, and these are common questions that affect a lot of us. So if you have any more questions, we'll give you another minute or two to ask those questions. So just a polite reminder: this evening, 6:30 p.m., we will be reciting Juz number 10 with Sheikh
11, I
Salman.
think so, isn't it?
Sorry.
Isn't it 11?
Yes, Juz 11 with Sheikh Salman Van Al, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And then we have our daily iftar hour from 7:40 p.m. onwards. And then same thing on Sunday. Sunday we'll be reciting a Juz again at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then 2 p.m. we have a journey, imagine the journey to the hereafter with Sheikh Salman. And then again in the evening we have a very, very special gathering of for the remembrance of the companions of Badr. So inshallah we'll have some special guests with Sheikh Salman, Sheikh Tanveer, and Imam Ghulam Jalani Sahib, who will be joining us, and Ustad Saman here and Molana Asim will be hosting the event, inshallah ta'ala. So it should be a very, very powerful event. It's an event that normally, subhanallah, we always have in the open, we have it outside, and it goes into the night. But sadly, due to the lockdown, we want to replicate this, however, online. So inshallah, please do join us and let others know. One more question, Molana Sab.
Yep.
Do you need to? Okay, I'm going to say this because it's been asked. Salams, please tell Molana Sab he is impressive. Um, but do you need to do adhan for Jamaat at home?
Uh, Adhan is sunnah muakkada, and so if it's done, then it's good. Uh, it doesn't need to be done before every single salah, but to have that practice, it's a sunnah. It's an emphasized sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And
Yeah.
it's good
So
to
as
keep.
in need, no, it's not a wajib and it's not a fard before prayer, but it's sunnah muakkada, so it's good to have to ensure and have that practice instead.
And it's a much better way of gathering everybody at home to pray
Absolutely. Yeah,
rather
we
than
spoke
shouting.
about this last week as well, sir. We said that, at home, do the adhan, do it in the gallery. And so those that are upstairs and around the house and so on and so forth can hear and then can join for the prayer.
Okay, a follow-on question. So if you do need to leave the namaz midway, as indicated earlier, do you start again or continue where you left off?
Um, Good question. The conditions that the in the Hanafi madhab, the conditions that are mentioned for which you can resume the prayer from where you left off is that you don't speak to anyone. You go and make wudu without any kalam. That is not recitation of the Quran. You don't say anything. And another condition which is very difficult to be fulfilled is that you don't turn your chest away from the Qibla. And so when we go back to make wudu, we're gonna turn our chests away from the Qibla and so on and so forth. So the conditions are very hard to be met. And so therefore, if a person does, if a person does have to make wudu, he has to make or she has to make wudu again, they should restart their prayer. Unless they're in a masjid and there's a jama'ah going on. So if there is a jama'ah going on and in the first rak'ah they broke their wudu and they go and make wudu with these conditions and they return back and the jama'ah is still going on, they can just join the jama'at.
Okay. Okay. When we start reading surahs in the Salah, and we were meant to read Surah Nas, for example, and accidentally started with Surah Ikhlas, but let's say only the first two words, and then start reading Surah Nas, is Sajda. So we will be covering Sajda Saho next week. So we'll probably dedicate next week, inshallah ta'ala, to the questions related to Sajda Saho, if that's okay with everyone. And one more question. Asr and Isha, first four sunnahs before the four fards, how should they be read? A lot of people don't know. So the four sunnahs before the Asr and the four sunnahs before Isha, how should they be read?
In the Hanafi madhab, the four Asr, the sunnahs qabla al-fard in Asr and Isha, the four sunnahs of Isha, they should be read as if you are reading two rak'ahs, two units. So you start off in the first rak'ah with Subhanakallahumma bihamdika wa tabarak asmuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruk. You go all the way, so you sit in tashahhud. Now tashahhud must be till the very end, till Rabbi ja'alni muqima salati. And before you say salam, you stand back up and you recite Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa tabarak asmuka. So it's as if you're reading two units of prayer without salam in between.
Okay, and there's one
Is that
more.
yeah? So that's how they should be prayed. So just like two units of prayer without salam in between.
Okay, and one last question, which has been answered from last week, but we'll put it out again. Um, can you pray Tarawih Jamaat in 4 rakats?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so inshallah ta'ala, that's it. I don't think there's any more questions. So inshallah, next week we will finish off the prayer and we'll get Molana Sahib to specifically cover Sajda Saho as well, inshallah. So if there's any questions related to that, inshallah, start putting them together and then we'll take it from there. So Jazakallah Molana Sahib for being and helping us and supporting us through all of this. Allah bless you, Allah raise you, and allow us to benefit from this knowledge that we can go and put into practice.
اللهم آمين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما وزدنا حكمة. الحمد لله على كل حال. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.